After my dad disowned me via text, I took away everything he held dear. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. 11:08 p.m. My screen lit up with my father's name and 8 words that should not fit in a single line. You're no longer my son. Return the fob. I stared until the letters stopped meaning anything. I'm Evan, 30, EMT, the one who shows up when sirens do. Dad calls that cute public service. Tonight he made it official, optics over blood. I didn't cry. I took a screenshot of the text and of the timestamp, then emailed them to myself. On the rig we say, document, then breathe. Tea hissed in the kettle while my mind did tree-off. Mom's refill cards route through one of his trusts. Lena's little girl's college fund sits in an account he manages. My spare key opens the storage unit with boxes of our mother's life. If I'm no longer his son, what happens to all of that? The phone vibrated again, blocked number. You have no standing on family assets. Fob tomorrow. That wasn't his voice. It was a hand near his levers. I scrolled up the thread. The PR-grade affection. Proud of you. Dinner soon. Bring Lena to the gala. He drafts feelings like press releases. My whole childhood felt like a stage. I kept missing my cue. I opened the laptop and a folder I once labeled, for a bitter laugh, optics. Inside, a few emails, screenshots, and a public UCC. One lean I pulled months ago by accident while helping a patient's husband Google the registrar. I dragged tonight's screenshots in. The kettle screamed. I poured, sat, and typed lean search into the state site. The spinner twirled, as if deciding whether to ruin my night. Here is what losing a father by text does. It clears the air. You see your choices. Curl small and take it, or stand and check the math of the life you were told to accept. I entered Richard M. Harrow Family Holdings, LLC, clicked search, and watched the first page populate. 2 hits I knew about. Then a third with a filing date from last quarter and a collateral description that read like a riddle with my mother's maiden name hidden inside it. An email popped up, verify authorized signer, and my name was attached. When I was 8, Dad took me to a charity luncheon where the forks outnumbered the jokes that landed. He shook hands like he owned wrists, posed for cameras, and introduced me as my little intern. I held a lemonade and wondered if interns could be 9. When I asked what his company made, he smiled. We make sense out of chaos, which later meant contracts, reputation, leverage, and favors that don't leave receipts. At 12, I won a school essay contest about community paramedics. He circled cliches with his quarterly review pen and told my mother to steer me towards something marketable. By high school, he'd stopped circling and started sniping. Small careers breed small appetites, he'd say at dinner, like we were shareholders in his hunger. Mom changed the subject to weather or oranges on sale. I learned to fold my ambitions smaller, then unfolded them anyway. Last month at Lena's birthday, he toasted the future of the family and thanked me for keeping an eye on the less strategic details. Laughter. I looked at Mom's old ring on my sister's hand and thought about stones that survive fires but still lie cold. After dessert, he cornered me by the patio heater. Your hours? He asked. It's a grind, I said. You can always come in-house, he said. We need someone who looks good on the right calls. It wasn't a job, it was a proper quest. That night, he sent the family thread a photo of candles and a caption about legacy. I typed, legacy should be honest, then deleted it. The cracks were there, snapped invoices, a collector's postcard for a trust with our surname, a staffer's abrupt exit from his office. I told myself he was too careful to be sloppy. His sloppiness was rule-breaking wearing a tux. The email from the bank officer waited in my inbox like a cuffed sleeve. Dear Mr. Harrow. It began, then my full name in parentheses, as if I were 2 people. It asked me to confirm a change to signer permissions on a family account ending in digits I knew from Mom's pharmacy calls. Attached, a PDF with a signature that looked like mine if my hand were driving on gravel. I dialed the officer's number and pressed speaker, watching steam ghost beneath the cabinets. A woman answered and asked me to verify the last 4. This call may be recorded, the woman said, and for once I was grateful. She introduced herself as Samantha Price from Beneficial Trust Services and read a paragraph, so carefully it sounded vacuum-sealed. When she reached the question, had I requested a signer change for account 84, my mouth answered before my brain. No. She paused, then asked for my email to send the audit trail. Full headers, please, I added, and she surprised me by saying, of course. While I waited, I reopened the registrar page. The third lien listed collateral including miscellaneous household assets retained at Storage Unit 17B, and a beneficiary entity with a name close to Mom's maiden name but off by a letter, the kind of difference that makes you think your memory is the problem. There was a filing agent I didn't recognize. I copied the filing number into my notes and added tonight's time. The email arrived with two attachments, a PDF of the permission change and a text file of system logs. The PDF showed a digital signature labeled Evan M. Harrow, timestamped 2 weeks ago at 2:03 a.m., originating IP masked as a company VPN. The audit log listed a physical IP last seen at my father's office range and a device model that matched his assistant's laptop. I felt the strange calm that comes when shock hardens into math. Samantha came back. We will freeze the change pending verification. You may receive pushback, she said softly, like someone who has watched fires through glass. I thanked her and asked for a written confirmation. After we hung up, I texted my aunt. May answered instantly, come by tomorrow. Bring what you have. I showered to rinse the adrenaline and tried to sleep. My brain put tape flags on years I had misfiled. The summer dad consolidated things after Mom's first surgery. The Christmas, he made a speech about stewardship while Lena cried in the kitchen over a tuition bill. The night a process server rang our bell, by mistake looking for a company that used to share our mailbox. Near 2 a.m., I shut the laptop and turned off the light. Outside, a snowplow dragged its blade like a zipper across the street. My phone face down. The room finally quiet. I exhaled and almost fell through the mattress. Then the lock clicked, and Dad's spare key turned slowly. The door opened a few inches, the chain caught with a clink. Evan, a voice whispered. Not my father. Lena. She blinked into the dark, then spotted me on the couch. You scared me, she said, stepping inside and closing the door carefully the way we were taught, as if walls had ears. She wore a coat over pajamas and held out her hand for my key. Dad asked me to grab the fob, she said, not meeting my eyes. It's a mess. We'll sort it out tomorrow. She moved toward the hook before I answered. I stood and put my hand on the wall above it. Lena, I said, and the gentleness in my voice surprised us both. Do you know there's a signer change request on Mom's account? With my name? She froze, not from ignorance, but recognition. He said you were acting out, she said, and her voice trembled, trying to sound neutral. He said something about boundaries. Boundaries don't forge signatures at 2:03 a.m., I said. Boundaries don't route medical money through entities that almost, but not quite, share Mom's name. Lena found the courage to be angry. You always think you're noble, she said. Maybe you made mistakes and don't remember. It was our family lullaby. Doubt yourself. Let reputation sing you asleep. I told her about Samantha at the bank, the IP ranges, the audit trail. Evan, she said low, please. If there's a fuss, it becomes a story. If it becomes a story, he loses clients. If he loses clients, we all pay. I looked at her and saw the cost ledger, childcare, rent, a coughing car. The machine runs on fear because fear is a renewable fuel. I took the fob off the hook and put it on the table. He doesn't need a key to a life he already raided, I said. But you can take it, because I won't be accused of theft tomorrow. She squeezed my wrist, gratitude and warning braided together. Don't poke the bear, she whispered. He can still cut you out of the will. He cut me out by text tonight, I said. Lena looked at the floor, then at the door. I'll tell him I couldn't find the key, she said, slipping the chain and leaving with steps of someone exiting a sick room. At 7:10 a.m., my aunt texted, coffee 9. Bring everything. And then, a minute later, come armed with dates. By 9, Aunt May would hand me a name I feared. Aunt May lives over a florist, and her apartment smells like flowers and old church bulletins. She hugged me hard and then went straight for the table. Show me, she said. I spread out my printouts, the text, the audit trail, the lien numbers, a half dozen screenshots like small windows on bigger weather. She poured coffee, sat, and slid a yellow post-it across the table. On it, Delphi Capital Registrars, Agent H. Calder. Your father used them in '09, she said. After your mother's first surgery. H. Calder worked every delicate file. May picked up the audit log. And this IP range? That's the old office suite. He never changed it after the move. She spoke like a nurse when a family needs facts clean. You knew something, I said. She didn't flinch. I knew he liked power more than truth, she said. I also knew your mother tried to hold falling glass with bare hands. She tapped the third lean. See the beneficiary name. One letter off your mother's maiden name? That's not sloppiness. It's camouflage you miss unless you know the forest. I told her about the late-night device edits, about Samantha's freeze, about Lena in a coat at midnight. He is escalating, May said. So you will de-escalate. No shouting, no threats, no late-night messages. We move in daylight with paper. She opened a drawer and pulled out a folder labeled binders, which was funny until it wasn't anymore. Inside were dividers, timeline, registrar, trusts, health, contacts. This isn't revenge, she said. It's first aid for a family that keeps bleeding out of sight. I put the papers in the sections and added notes the way I build a run sheet after a tough call. We agreed on calls. Bank officer, registrar help desk, and May took a breath. Carter. The lawyer? I asked. The ethical one, she said. He'll tell you what's real and what's noise. My phone vibrated. Lena, he's calm now. Return the fob. Don't make a mess. I typed and erased twice. Then I screenshot her message for the binder and wrote back. Meeting counsel at noon. We'll update. 3 dots appeared, then nothing. At 11:30, I pushed into Lawyer Carter's lobby with a folder that felt like a portable fire alarm. Carter walked in, saw the text printout, and actually went pale. Carter's conference room smelled like old books and printer heat. He read the text from my father, the audit log from the trust account, and the lien filings without interrupting. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet enough to make truth sound heavier. 2 lanes, he said, drawing them with a pen. Lane 1, relationships, where texts hurt and Thanksgiving goes weird. Lane 2, governance, signers, liens, filings, fiduciary duty. We're staying in lane 2. He circled the 2:03 a.m. signature. Digital signature with your name, company VPN, IP in your father's old office range, he said. That's not a typo. That's impersonation. Aunt May leaned forward. What protects Mom's prescriptions? She asked. Freezing any change, Carter said, and putting the bank on written notice with evidence. We also send preservation letters to your father's office, the registrar's filing agent, and anyone touching records, telling them not to delete or alter anything. It's not drama. It's procedure. He flipped the lien printout. Beneficiary spelled off by 1 letter, he said. Classic cloaking. We'll request the registered agent's file, including engagement letter and identity of the filer. If Delphi Capital Registrars refuses, we subpoena. He tapped a note May had written. H. Calder. If Calder handled the old delicate matters, he'll know where the bones were tidied. I asked about risk. You'll get pushback, he said. Guilt. Offers to make it go away if you sign broader NDAs. Don't. We move in daylight with paper. He asked about documents with my mother's name. I mentioned the storage unit and the ring of keys on my hook. Inventory it. Don't remove anything yet, he said. Photograph box labels. We'll notarize a chain of custody log before anyone claims you tampered. He wrote 3 emails from my account with me watching, to Samantha at the bank, to the registrar requesting the filing packet, and to a former staffer whose resignation had looked like a vanishing trick. Subject lines matter, he said. Use dates. Use filing numbers. Make it boring so no one confuses it with a fight. I breathed, finally. What about family? I asked. Invite your sister to watch process, not conflict, he said. Truth helps the scared if you keep it verifiable. He slid my folder back, leveled his gaze, and asked the question that changed my posture. He looked up and asked, Do you want to pull this pin? We started with daylight and paper. I met Samantha at the bank, not in a corner, but at a glass desk where reflections kept everyone honest. She handed me a printed freeze confirmation and, in a quiet aside, the department's escalation contact for suspected impersonation. Keep your dates tight, she advised. Timestamps are your friends. From there, Aunt May and I drove to the public records office to pull the UCC packets in person. The clerk slid us manila folders heavy with thin pages. The signatures looked like my mother's if grief had learned to counterfeit. Collateral schedules referenced household assets retained at storage unit 17B and listed a beneficiary entity with that one-letter skew again. I felt my jaw lock the way it does on scene when someone lies to keep breathing. Carter texted, "Ex-assistant available, 3 p.m. Cafe on Maple." Her name was Kayla, and she arrived carrying the kind of caution you can't fake. She ordered tea, then, without prompting, laid a second phone on the table. "Work issued," she said, "left behind in the rush. You forgot it lives in the cloud." She opened the photos, documents spread on mahogany, a rubber stamp of my mother's signature, a folder labeled Aftercare, Donors, that was not about donors' care at all, but about keeping gossip quiet with consulting fees. Kayla spoke in short sentences, the way people do when they've already told themselves the story enough to survive it. Calder coordinates filings, she said. Private registrar, very discreet. We're helping the family steward, he'd say. There were late-night edits to signer forms. We'll fix optics in Q2, he said once, like people were quarterly earnings. She slid a printed rideshare log toward me. He visited the private gaming club 3 Fridays in a row, she said. Expenses labeled networking. I booked the cars. Another screen. Emails about guarantees. My mother's maiden name initialed in the margin like a borrowed coat. Kayla looked at me, then at May. "I'll sign a statement," she said. "I should have done this when I left." We left the cafe and drove to the storage unit. My fob blinked green. Boxes waited like quiet jurors. We didn't touch, just photograph labels. Archive B, signature stamps, donor care, property file, Rose Street. May's exhale shook. "Rose Street," she whispered. "Your mother's house before him." Kayla's last words followed me to the door like a draft. Kayla whispered, "He used your mother's signature last spring on the house." By morning, the binder had weight. Dates tabbed, screenshots titled, people placed on a map that looked less like a family and more like an operating diagram. Carter added a primer in plain words. A personal guarantee is a promise to pay a business's debt if it fails. Your mother did not agree. Someone promised for her. He attached the registrar's overnight reply. A sterile email stating that Delphi Capital Registrars is a filing service, not a law firm, along with a single-page engagement signed by H. Calder on behalf of beneficiary. There was no wet signature from my mother anywhere, just the stamp we'd photographed through a box lid. We traced money. Kayla's phone showed transfers labeled consulting to a boutique PR firm on weeks when tabloids sniffed around a donor. The private gaming club charges were coded as member dues, but the amounts followed a gambler's rhythm. Small teasers, then a real swing, then dry weeks titled detox. Aunt May underlined dates that matched Lena's tuition panic, my mother's prescription refill delays, and that cursed legacy toast. The registrar packet led to a small offshore LLC listed in a registry with a palm tree logo that tried too hard to look like wind. Carter translated the jargon. "This shell guarantees a line of credit," he said, "and the comfort for the lender is the collateral. These miscellaneous household assets and a property file that looks very much like Rose Street. If the line falters, they come knocking." "On a dead woman's door," May said softly, and for a second I thought her voice would break. It didn't. It calcified. "We give the bank notice of potential fraud in the collateral chain," she said, now the nurse again, moving toward Trioff. Carter nodded. "We also file a sworn statement denying consent, attach the audit trail, and request a hold on any drawdown related to those guarantees. And you, Evan, you send a preservation letter to H. Calder. The letter is boring. The facts are not." We printed photos from the storage unit, labels legible, timestamps clear, and notarized an inventory list with the facility manager as witness. I texted Lena, "I have documents affecting Mom's house. Please come listen tomorrow." 3 dots. Then, "Don't do this to him." At midnight, sorting pages at my kitchen table, I found a schedule titled Education Optics, 529s. The column marked Backstop carried 2 entries with small titles that felt big in my throat. The collateral listed Mom's house and Lena's daughter's fund as backstop security. I stared at the Education Optics, 529 schedule until the numbers blurred. It wasn't theory anymore. It was my niece's future, backstop for a gambler's streak dressed up as stewardship. I printed 2 copies and highlighted in yellow. One went in the binder, one on the fridge where I wouldn't forget why this mattered. Carter called before dawn. That line item changes tone, he said. College funds fall under strict fiduciary obligations. If he used them as collateral without beneficiary consent, that's not just bad form. It's actionable. We move faster now. Aunt May brewed coffee strong enough to keep us upright. She spoke like she'd rehearsed it. You don't fight a man like Richard by matching his ego. You fight him by inviting witnesses and using language he can't outcharm. Dates, signatures, logs. We mapped it. Step 1. Formal notice to the bank that collateral includes non-consented assets. Step 2. Request to registrar for clarification on authority chain. Step 3. Invite Lena to witness. Not to shame her, but so she couldn't say she didn't know. Step 4. Schedule a meeting where Carter could walk through evidence in front of a neutral officer. I hesitated. If I go public, Lena might never forgive me. May leaned in. If you stay silent, her daughter pays. Which version do you want her to remember? We sent the notice letters that morning, each certified, each bearing Carter's neat, dry phrasing. Denial of consent by beneficiary's estate. Potential fraudulent guarantee. Request immediate freeze. At lunch, my phone buzzed Lena. Her voice cracked. He says you're inventing stories to hurt us. He says you forged those records yourself. I breathed. Then come see them. Tomorrow. Bring anyone you trust. She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, if Mom's house is really listed, I need to see. That night, as I closed the binder, my father's number lit up my screen for the first time since his text. The message was short enough to feel colder than silence. It read, "Stop now or you'll regret dragging the family name through dirt." The text ended with coordinates of a private dinner he wanted me at tomorrow night. The dinner invitation felt like bait. I showed Carter. He didn't blink. He wants control back. He'll use shame, intimidation, maybe offer you a deal. Don't go alone. Aunt May said she'd sit 2 tables away. He won't risk a scene with me there, she said. We arrived early at the restaurant, a paneled place where reputation tried to live in polished wood. Richard swept in late, wearing charm like armor. "Evan," he said, too loud, too bright. "Sit. Let's fix this misunderstanding before you embarrass yourself further." I slid the binder onto the table but didn't open it. "These aren't misunderstandings," I said. "They're filings. Liens. Collateral schedules. Mom's house. Lena's daughter's college fund." His smile twitched. "Technicalities. Every family with assets uses leverage. You wouldn't understand." "I understand signatures," I said, tapping the page with the 2:03 a.m. timestamp. "And I understand Mom didn't give this one." His voice lowered. "You think you're clever, but creditors won't care about your moral outrage. They'll care about stability. And if you force instability, they'll come for everything." May shifted in her chair across the room. Richard caught the movement, his eyes narrowing. He leaned closer. "I'll give you a choice," he whispered. "Sign this non-disclosure agreement, take a settlement, and walk away. You'll get money, references, and no one will know how pathetic you've been." I looked at the folded NDA he slid across the table. The ink still smelled wet. "I won't," I said. His smile vanished. "Then you're no son of mine." I pushed the binder toward him and stood. "I wasn't the one who ended that," I said. He didn't follow. He just whispered after me, the way only a cornered man does. "You have no idea what storms you're calling down on yourself." By dawn, Carter had arranged the meeting. Neutral ground, the community bank's conference suite, with a creditor liaison and registrar's rep invited. "We'll put facts on record," he said. "No shouting matches. Just documents." I called Lena. "If you want truth, come tomorrow. Bring anyone you trust. I won't twist your arm." Silence. "Then, I'll come. But if this ruins him, it's on you." May drove me there, her hands steady. "This isn't about ruin," she said. "It's about daylight." We set up packets, one for each attendee. Cover page, dates and document IDs. Tab 1, the disowned text. Tab 2, the audit log showing my name forged. Tab 3, lien schedules with Mom's house and the 529 fund highlighted. Tab 4, Kayla's sworn statement about the stamp and the gaming club. When Richard arrived, Lena beside him, he looked at the packets like they were cheap insults. "You've gone too far," he hissed. The creditor liaison opened her folder. Mr. Miller, these are serious. We'll need confirmation on collateral consent. Richard snapped. Clerical errors. Easily fixed. Carter cleared his throat. Then you won't mind producing original wet signatures. Richard's jaw tightened. Not necessary. We all know the intent. The registrar's rep leaned in. Intent doesn't matter in our filings. Only consent. And consent appears missing. Lena's eyes widened as she read the 529 entry. Dad, is this true? He reached for her hand, but she pulled back. Tell me it's not. For the first time in my life, I watched Richard's mask slip, not in anger, but in panic. And in that moment, I realized the storm he warned me of had already begun to break. The silence in that conference room was louder than any shouting match. Richard's hand hovered above Lena's, but she kept it clenched in her lap. The creditor liaison pushed the packet back toward him. We'll require immediate clarification on these discrepancies, she said. Until then, we're freezing all transactions tied to these accounts. Richard's voice cracked. You can't just. We can. Carter interrupted firmly. And we will. Unless you can produce lawful, verified signatures today. Richard's face flushed red. He turned toward me with a venom I hadn't seen since childhood. You orchestrated this. You want to see me humiliated in front of my own daughter. I met his glare. You did this when you sent that text. You made it final when you forged Mom's name. Lena spoke up then, her voice trembling. Dad, tell me you didn't risk Anna's college fund. Richard's mask cracked into a desperate grin. It was temporary. A placeholder, just to secure a line of credit. I was going to fix it before anyone noticed. You think the world runs on morality, Lena? It runs on leverage. The registrar's rep snapped her folder shut. And leverage without consent is fraud. The weight of the word filled the room. Richard's swagger collapsed. For the first time, he didn't have a story to hide behind. Carter leaned back. This meeting is concluded. Formal notices will be filed by day's end. Mr. Miller, you're removed as trustee effective immediately. Richard didn't argue. He just sat there, fists balled, as if the walls had betrayed him. Lena turned to me, tears welling. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I whispered. Because you wouldn't have believed me. And as we walked out, Richard's voice followed like a curse. This isn't over. You'll regret tearing down your own bloodline. News travels fast in families, faster still in towns hungry for gossip. By evening, my phone buzzed nonstop. Cousins, uncles, family friends. Half called me a hero for standing up. Half called me a traitor for airing dirty laundry. Mom's old house was spared, the freeze held. Anna's college fund was restored, untouchable now. But with those winds came a storm. Richard's allies in his business circles smeared me as vindictive and unstable. I lost a consulting contract I'd quietly been working toward. Whispers followed me in the grocery store. Lena called late that night. I read everything twice, she said. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. And now, I don't know how to face him. You don't have to yet, I said. You just have to protect yourself. Richard, meanwhile, dug trenches. He filed counterclaims, accusing me of falsifying documents. Carter called it the last gasp of a drowning man. Still, each notice that hit my mailbox chipped at my nerves. I tried to hold it together at work, but my EMT partner, Luis, noticed. You look like you're running a marathon with no finish line, he said. He wasn't wrong. Aunt May kept me steady. Reputation fades, Evan. Receipts don't. But the stress sank in. Missed meals, restless nights, glances over my shoulder in case Richard's fury found another outlet. Then one afternoon, a cousin messaged me a photo. Richard at the country club, ranting, his drink sloshing, pointing at a newspaper. The headline read, Trustee removed amid fraud allegations. And beneath that headline was my name as the whistleblower. The fallout was brutal but clarifying. Creditors filed formal complaints. Richard's accounts were audited. For the first time in decades, the image of the untouchable patriarch cracked in public view. At home, Lily, my niece, hugged me. Thank you for saving my fund, she whispered. I hadn't realized how deeply she'd been following the storm. That hug anchored me more than any legal notice. Carter urged boundaries. You're not his fixer. The system has the wheel now. Step back. But stepping back was harder than it sounded. Every family dinner invitation felt like a trap. Half the room avoided eye contact. The other half whispered praise when Richard wasn't listening. Lena sat me down. I can't cut him off entirely. But I can't defend him either. I need time. I know, I said. Boundaries aren't about punishment. They're about survival. Therapy helped. My counselor asked a question I hadn't expected. Are you grieving the father you wanted or the one you had? The truth stung. I'd been clinging to a man who never existed outside appearances. Bills still piled up, stress lingered, and the smear campaign hadn't stopped. But each document, each ruling, each small nod of recognition reminded me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I was right. And then, one quiet morning, I opened my mailbox to find the court's final notice. Protective orders granted. Trusteeship formally transferred. Collateral releases recorded. The paper trembled in my hands as I realized what it meant. For the first time in my life, Richard no longer held power over me. I sat at the kitchen table, the protective order spread beside the morning coffee. Sunlight cut across the page like a seal. Aunt May walked in, smiling softly. It's over, she said. I thought of the text that started it all. You're no longer my son. It had felt like a knife, but now it was a map. It led me here, to a life not defined by his approval or scorn. At dinner that night, Lena brought Anna. My niece raised a toast with water in her glass. To telling the truth, even when it costs you. We clinked glasses, the sound small but defiant. Richard wasn't there. He might never be again. But his absence felt less like a wound and more like space to breathe. I wrote one final note in my journal. Power built on secrets collapses when you shine daylight on the receipts. If someone watching this is holding back because of fear or loyalty, I'll say this. Document everything, trust the evidence, and don't let shame seal your mouth shut. Because in the end, the bloodline I thought I lost wasn't mine to lose. It was his to forfeit, and mine to finally walk away from, with dignity intact and truth unshaken.